how do I know that this is affecting me? Because I think it can kind of sneak up on you. Everybody reacts differently. Some people find themselves getting a lot grumpier, snapping at people, and then afterwards they say, why did I do that? Or maybe people feel themselves withdrawing, maybe doing self-comforting things that aren't good, maybe drinking more, maybe sleeping more, maybe going on the internet more and wasting their time, diving into work and avoiding the things that are really important, like the people that you love. Being aware, I think, is the first thing. And then what do you do about it?
Educate, inform, inspire. The Dan Parsons Show, a podcast that lifts up instead of tearing down.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Dan Parsons Show. I am your host, Dan Parsons. Hey, coming up on today's show, the return of Dr. Trey. Dr. Trey Thompson is a licensed psychologist and the clinic director of his own clinic in San Antonio, Texas. For those of you who followed my radio show, you may remember Dr. Trey, and you may also recall that he's my slightly younger brother. So we're going to talk about a pretty serious topic today. So all of us are just heartbroken about what's going on in Texas and the flooding and all of the deaths. So we're going to talk about that issue today with Dr. Trey. And as you'll hear, he is very familiar with that area and the topic of grief. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. In the meantime, though, before I introduce Dr. Trey, please do me a favor, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube page. We're building a pretty amazing community, and I'd love for you to join us. Okay, here's my interview with Dr. Trey Thompson. Enjoy. Well, it is my delight to welcome back to the show Dr. Russell Thompson, known as Trey. Trey is a licensed psychologist and the clinical director at Mission Psychology in San Antonio, Texas. And he happens to be my slightly younger brother. As I'm sure some of you will remember, Dr. Trey appeared as a regular guest on the old radio show, our segment Dating Over 50. Dr. Trey appeared on that several times, and his last appearance on this show was back in November of last year to help us navigate the aftermath of the presidential election. So it's high time to have Dr. Trey back on the show. So Dr. Trey, welcome aboard.
It's great to be here. Good to talk.
Yeah, so great. So great. Well, this is a serious topic, and I wanted to reach out to Dr. Trey as a psychologist and help us navigate our feelings, our emotions about the tragedy that happened just up the road from you, Trey. Just maybe to set the tone here. Trey is in North San Antonio, and just up the road is the Hill Country that had the devastating floods last week, killed more than 100 people. And we're recording this episode on Thursday, and so you may not see this until Monday. But so I wanted to give Trey a chance to help us navigate our emotions. Whether you live in Texas or any place else in the country, we all, as a nation, are mourning this horrific deaths caused by this flood. And Trey, I know that you've been to the Hill Country often. You've taken me up there many times. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. Lots of art, lots of great wineries and music. And it's just been devastated. Kind of the perfect storm, right? Of this system that just parked itself over that area and just caused devastation. So anyway, I'll shut up and let you dive in.
Well, it really is very sad. And, it happens every 10 years. I mean, it is a beautiful place. It's rocky. There are lots of rivers there, and the rivers go from having no water at all to having way too much water. And the people that live there know this, and they live with it. And the weather is the weather, and the rain came in the middle of the night and it built up, and it just it's a disaster.
I read that this storm that just parked itself over that area and dumped 10 to 12 inches of rainfall in about 6 hours. And people
Yeah,
said it was the perfect storm.
yeah, and we've been in a drought. So we've been in a drought for like 5 years. So the ground was very hard. The water did not soak in, and the time of year could not have been worse. It was 4th of July. So there were families there, people in RVs at RV parks. There were people camping. There were, I don't know how many children's camps there are along the river, but there are lots. And a lot of people have talked about Camp Mystic because it was kind of the oldest and best known and maybe worst hit, I'm sad to say. But many, many children there at risk, and it's very sad. And when you think about everybody that I've talked to in my work since then brings it up, and these things, when these bad things happen, it like you said, it happens to our community, and that doesn't necessarily just mean if you live in Kerrville, Texas, or Hunt, Texas, or whatever, because we all feel a sense of connection to people in different ways. And I know that I've talked to many people who are parents or grandparents who had kids who are that age, who are at camp, and naturally you're going to feel more of a connection to that than you would otherwise, because you can imagine this happening to your family.
Well, yeah,
Or,
just think about it, Trey. I mean, you have grandchildren of that age. I have grandchildren of that age. I mean, it really does for all of us. We all can relate and connect at some level.
yeah, I took my grandkids up to the river while they were here, maybe 2 or 3 weeks before that. And, it's gorgeous, it's fun, and it's wild, and it's difficult. And now we have to figure out what to do with this. And I know that a lot of your listeners are in Nebraska and maybe wondering, why do I feel so connected to this? This is far away. But you've been camping, you have kids, you've been on the river. There's a connection there that we make for ourselves, and then we have to figure out what to do with that connection. It's sad, it's scary, and those feelings are unpleasant. And some of the reaction that we've seen in the news, frankly, has not been helpful or good. We see lots of people, interrogating the governor on TV, what went wrong, and the governor responding very defensively and not very well, in my opinion. The time for figuring out what's wrong and how to prevent the next tragedy will come, but now is probably not the time for that.
Well, and it's our natural human condition to want to have answers, right? And to affix blame to someone, and especially in this politically charged era that we're in, that's just the nature of where we're at, and it's driven by the cable news and the pundits, and it's just the nature of the beast. But yeah, as a nation, when these tragedies happen, I think we look for leadership. And again, we're not about bashing politicians or anything, but I mentioned to somebody the other day of looking back in prior presidents and leadership, and again, this president has a different style, and we're not here to talk about that, but we do look for leaders to give us some comfort. And someone to give us comfort. And oftentimes, obviously, we looked for mental health professionals to give us that comfort. And so I'm sure you will, I'm sure you already have and will continue to talk to patients about this tragedy.
Yeah, and there are some systems in place to do that. Certainly the professionals that are out there are going to be busy. But there are other systems in place for more immediate support, and I think that as hard as it is, coming together as a community is a really, really important part of that. Whether that means hugging your children and your grandchildren, or here where we are, everybody is putting on events to try to help raise money. Some of that may feel a little self-serving, but it also is a way to pull people together. And I'm going to go to a house concert in New Braunfels on Saturday night. And
Wow.
a couple of musicians said, hey, we're going to come out and play and we're going to donate everything to the cause. And so I'm going to go sit in somebody's backyard with a bunch of other people, and we're all going to be sad and scared together. And I think that's better than sitting at home and scrolling through my feed and getting more and more pissed off
Yeah.
at what's going on. So I'm thankful that there are people out there that are doing that.
Well, maybe give our audience, Trey, a little understanding of where you're located and where the hill country is. And you mentioned New Braunfels, and just give us a little bit geography lesson.
Boy, if there is anybody worse that you could pick for a geography lesson.
Well, we know this family trait. We don't want either one of us driving if we want to get someplace. Yes.
Yeah. So whatever I say now, I hope nobody will try to use that as a way to find New Braunfels from San Antonio, because you probably won't get there. But having said that, San Antonio is connected to Austin by I-35, and in between is New Braunfels and San Marcos. And so New Braunfels is probably 30 miles from my house, maybe less. And that this sort of goes up kind of north and to the east a little bit, and then to the north and the west a little bit is Kerrville, and I would say it's probably about a 60-mile triangle. And in between there are several different rivers and several different communities that are spread out there. So the fallout from these things, it's kind of like tornadoes, which is, so it's very localized. I think if you're not on the river, you're really not anywhere near the kind of danger that the people on the river are in. So for where we live, we had just a heavy rain, and our ground was a little soggy outside, but certainly no standing water or anything like that. And the individual rivers and the individual communities up there in the hill country were affected differently at different times because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so maybe what's some advice that you give people when we're going through these tragedies? And again, as you mentioned, we don't have to be immediately impacted to feel this weight of this. And so what is it about grief that really affects us more than maybe any other emotion?
Well, I guess I'll answer your first question. How do I know that this is affecting me? Because I think it can kind of sneak up on you. And I think that everybody reacts differently. Some people find themselves getting a lot grumpier and snapping at people and then afterwards they say, why did I do that? Or maybe people feel themselves withdrawing and maybe doing self-comforting things that aren't good. Maybe drinking more, maybe sleeping more, maybe, going on the internet more and wasting their time. Maybe sort of diving into work and avoiding the things that are really important, like the people that you love. I think so. Being aware, I think, is the first thing. And then what do you do about it? Well, one of the things that I do is I do try to turn that off and I only need so much information. And as much as maybe there's a part of me that thinks if I keep watching, maybe I'll get something that feels good. Maybe I'll get a rush of dopamine because I see something that feels better. I'm probably going to be better going out and walking or riding a bike or doing something that gets me away from that. The other thing that to be aware of is these things stack up. And so if you were already dealing with a lot of stress in your life, or you are already dealing with a lot of sadness because maybe you're caring for an elderly parent, or you have kids that are having difficulty in school, or whatever is going on in your life, just know that your gas tank was already partly depleted. And this may have been the just enough that even though you were coping very well before, now you're not coping well. And then thinking about what I need to do to take care of myself. And sometimes that can be an easy fix, like going out and walking. Sometimes it can be a more complicated fix. And maybe it would be helpful for you to go talk to somebody, a grief counselor or a therapist or your primary care doctor. Maybe if you're taking an antidepressant medicine, maybe you need to bump that up a little bit. I always get, I'm a therapist, I'm a psychologist. I don't prescribe medicine. I'm not a medical doctor. And so, people a lot of times will ask me, well, should I take antidepressant medicine? Should I do therapy? And I always tell people, the research tells us that medicine and therapy both help with depression. Medicine tends to kick in a little bit faster. Therapy tends to last longer. And if you want to have a better chance of hitting the balloon, it's better to throw 2 darts than 1. So if you want to maximize your chances of getting a benefit, probably a little antidepressant, a little therapy, both of those together would help.
That's good. That's good advice. Keep going.
Yeah. Well, and there are these online things like betterhelp.com or whatever, and you can get a little palliative care there, some brief kind of intervention. I personally would not find that to be very helpful to, talk to somebody that I've never met and do text messages and emails and Zoom or whatever. It's immediate and that can be helpful. But personally, I would rather sit in a room with somebody, look them in the eye and feel like there's somebody really present with me. And most people, if you have reasonably good insurance, you can probably see a therapist for, the 20 or 30 or 40 bucks a week. If you want to really get something out of therapy, I would say you need to plan on investing, 6 months of weekly sessions at a minimum. When you start therapy, you're going to feel a little bit better because you've started to do something. But really, if you want to get a benefit, I think that most people find that sticking with it for a longer period of time, you're going to get more out of it.
Yeah. No, that's good advice. Well, let's switch topics here a little bit. And I want to fold into this, Dr. Trey, some of your history and your education. So maybe before I get into this, I want to talk about the big, beautiful bill that passed and some of the impacts on law enforcement and tee you up to talk about incarceration and the crisis that we're facing with mental health, with incarceration, increased incarceration in the nation. But maybe remind our audience a little bit of your background, your doctorate, and your path to where you're at today. Because you worked with veterans, you've worked with veterans for years.
Yeah, really. So I did a master's degree in community counseling at Oklahoma State when I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then,
hey, sorry to interrupt you, but for our Nebraska audience, don't hold it against him that he's a Sooner. Keep going.
Yeah, total Okie fan. I brought that with me to Texas, and I'm in enemy territory now. So came down to Texas, went to Texas A&M where I did my doctorate, got really great training there. Texas A&M is an amazing school with lots of resources. It's gigantic.
Hey, you stole our AD, by the way.
Yeah. We'll see how long he lasts. I don't know how long the Aggies will put up with that guy. they really want to win, and they never really have. And but that, that's probably a whole other mental health issue.
Yes, we'll have you back to talk about football season because anyway.
But I'll do an on-site one for that. I'm going to come up and see the Huskers.
There you go. Yes, we'll do a live version. Yeah,
that'll be good. So I went there, and even while I was there, I quickly figured out that I wanted to work with veterans, and I did training rotations at the Houston VA and the Temple VA, even during my academic training. And then for a psychologist, you have to do an internship and a postdoctoral fellowship. So 2 more years after that. And I came to San Antonio to the South Texas Veterans Healthcare System. And so I worked at the VA here in San Antonio for 2 years. A year of that, I actually went to the Kerrville VA. And I was talking to a colleague of mine today, and we were both reminiscing about how we would take our lunch break and look at the river there in Kerrville, which kind of sent a little chill down my spine when I remembered that, because that was a long time ago. So when I got to the VA, we were mostly working with Vietnam and even some Korea and World War II vets. That was pre 9/11. I think they had about 10 psychologists on staff. It was a sleepy little department. Since then, they've built an entire psychology building. They have a staff of over 100 psychologists, and they still can't keep up. San Antonio has 3 military bases and a couple of other military bases within a short distance. So a lot of veterans here, and a lot of need for healthcare, both physical and mental health care.
Yeah. Well, good. Thank you for filling that. And your practice now, you've had your practice now in San Antonio for many years.
So. Right. Yeah. And now I'm in a private group practice. I see lots of veterans. We take TRICARE. So we see active duty and veterans and dependents. And I'm happy that we get to do that. It's a great opportunity. And I've learned so much working with veterans over the years. And of course I do a lot of other work as well, including in the correctional system.
Yeah.
A lot of psychological evaluations for the courts, and including going to the Bexar County Jail here in San Antonio to do evaluations for people. So it kind of touches on what you're.
Yeah. Well, let me set this up. A lot of us have been following this big, beautiful bill, the big multi-level bill that Congress passed I guess it was just last week. The president signed it on 4th of July. But one of the things that is starting to emerge from this bill, it is such a huge bill. There's, I think we're still finding out what all's in there. But ICE, the immigration enforcement portion of the law enforcement, will have more funding in the coming years than any other federal law enforcement agency in America. 4 times the amount of law enforcement than the FBI. This new law allocates $75 billion for ICE through 2029. They will have 10,000 new agents and billions of dollars. This is how it connects back to this topic that I know we wanted to talk about. Billions of dollars to build new detention facilities for more than 100,000 additional people in America. So if we had overcrowded prisons and jails currently, this new administration is going to build more and fill them up. So there's a crisis already. And so talk a little bit about that, Trey.
Well, it's interesting because Dilley, Texas is a little town I think it's about 50 miles south of San Antonio. Again, I'm geographically impaired. It might well be very different than that, but I'm pretty sure it's toward the south. Very small town, built a very large detention facility that started just with children, and then they added moms, and then they added other men as well. And I've known several psychologists that work there, and they would sleep there. They would do 48-hour shifts or longer, and they would be there all the time. And most of the people I know who did that were bilingual Spanish speakers, and most of the people that were being held at that time were Spanish speakers. Um, and they had to do everything. I mean, they had to do everything for these people. They had to educate the children. They had to deal with moms with postpartum depression. They had to deal with kids with learning disabilities. I mean, everything. Obviously, a lot of trauma. You know, the process of getting to the United States is very dangerous, and you know, it's very dangerous. And people who come here, many left their countries because their lives were in danger there, and they had been traumatized. So, a tremendous amount of mental health demand for the people that are held in these places. And anytime there is any kind of an incarceration type situation, the level of stress is magnified. So whatever mental health problems somebody had coming in, you can guarantee it's going to be worse when they're incarcerated. Speaking more broadly about this issue, I don't know if this is true for the entire United States, but I can tell you that for the metro areas in Texas, by far the largest mental health providers are the county jails. There are tens of thousands of people that are being held in the jails, and many of them have serious mental illness. And, you know, this is part of an effort that started in the 70s when we started sort of deinstitutionalizing people.
Right.
We said, we just don't want to lock people up and throw away the key. Well, so, okay, that's a good idea. We put them out on the streets, but there's no care for them. So you have lots of people who are seriously mentally ill. They have bipolar disorder, they have schizophrenia, they have other serious mental illness, and they don't get treatment, they don't have structure. And really, in some ways, jail is the safest place for these folks. And so they just bounce back and forth in and out of jail. It's a terrible crisis. It terribly complicates the justice system. It massively increases the cost of taking care of these people, getting them tried, and then dealing with the, whatever kind of consequences they face for the crimes that they commit. I think that locking more people up is likely to increase the mental health demands that we have in this country. And it's really pretty terrifying.
Well, and yeah, I know county governments. I mean, here in Lancaster County, I mean, that's continued challenge, just the increased population and the care for those people. And I can't even imagine what it would be like in your area dealing with that influx of immigrants. And so, just the human toll of it, and how do we pay for it? Again, we're making cuts, and
in South Texas, here in San Antonio, the state. Really in all of Texas, all of the state hospitals now, which is where normally, if you have somebody who is suicidal or who is a danger to themselves or others in any way, we would take them to a mental hospital, at least until they can get some treatment and get stabilized and be safe. Well, the demand is so overwhelming in Texas that all of the state hospitals that we have, including the one in San Antonio, now the only people are there are people who are already in the criminal justice system. They've been found not guilty by reason of insanity, or they're waiting for trial because they're incompetent, and they're being given some kind of competency restoration process. But if you haven't committed a crime and you're mentally ill, there is no state facility to treat you in Texas.
Wow. So what happens to those people?
Well, they get dumped on the county hospital.
Okay.
And they stay for the absolute minimum amount of time. They bounce out, they bounce back. We have a really well-organized and well-thought-out system for taking care of homeless people called Haven for Hope that has a comprehensive system that people can get on their feet, get training, get medical care, get mental health treatment, and so on. And they do their best they can there. But if people are so sick that they exceed the ability that Haven for Hope has to treat people, then it's kind of a crapshoot, really. And a lot of those people end up on the street. They end up getting arrested because they trespass, because they are psychotic and they do things that are scary to people. So they get arrested, they go to the county jail, and boom, there you go.
Well, Dr. Trey, thanks for that perspective on those issues, because you're in the thick of it. And I think for all of us, you've made me a believer, and so many other people have relied on your advice to take care of your mental health. And so anyway, I appreciate what you do. Hey, let's end on some fun stuff. When you're coming up for a football game, and how do you analyze year 3 of Coach Rule? Because I know you follow college football. And how will your Sooners do this year?
Well, those are a lot of really hard questions, and I don't think I have an answer, except looking at the schedule. I've been up there several times, and I always love it because, the environment there is just so classic. And but I have to say that a little disappointment is I really want to come up there and have a crisp fall experience, because it's hot here. And by the time I get to August, September, October, I'm so sick of the heat, and it'll still be 100 degrees here. So I want to put in a request for some nice, crisp autumn days in October so that I can come up there and walk around in a long sleeve shirt and get excited about college football. I do think that the Huskers are on an upward trajectory. I'm a little worried that the Sooners might be getting ready to sort of go through the same kind of transitional misery that the Huskers had to go through in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Because the SEC is no joke, and the Sooners got to be the bullies of the Big 12 for a long time. On the other hand, do not ever count out Sooner magic, okay? It's a real thing. And I would not be surprised this year to see the Sooners whoop up on the Longhorns, which always makes everybody happy. And they might just be back in the national conversation. This is the time of year when we can always dream.
I've seen some, and being a Cornhusker my whole life, I've learned long ago after the glory days to not get too excited. But year 3 for Coach Rule is the magic year, and he's done it everywhere he's been. So, and we got a hot quarterback who's only a sophomore. So anyway, we'll see what happens. But yeah, well, it's great to have you back on the show. We're not doing the dating over 50 because I'm parking that for a while. So, but we should do that for our Patreon guests for a bonus question. So,
if I'm not mistaken, I think the inspiration for the dating over 50 actually happened at a Husker weekend, and you and me
Chef Kevin.
And Chef Kevin were out on a beautiful day, seeing a lot of happy couples that looked over 50. And we were thinking, this is really a thing, and people need to talk about this. And so who knows, Dan, maybe this year we'll have a nice crisp autumn day, and you'll find some new inspiration, and magic will happen. Not just for the Huskers.
A little Parsons magic.
A little Parsons
A little
magic.
Dan magic. Well, we won't make this so long, Trey, because like I said, it's been since last November, the last national disaster that we had you on. So we'll make this more of a regular thing, because I know our audience loves to hear from you. And again, thank you for your work. Thank you for your knowledge and compassion for people. And we'll do it again, brother.
It's fun, and I'm very happy to do it.
Hey, thanks, Dr. Trey, for your compassion, care, and knowledge. Our hearts go out to all those grieving in Texas. The nation is grieving with you. So thanks, Dr. Trey, for helping us process that. If you've got a question or a comment for Dr. Trey, just hop on over to our YouTube page and leave your comment or question. I promise we'll get back to you. Hey, I want to thank the Parsons team who made this show possible. Chase Porter, our executive producer, Ike Samanis, producer and graphic design, Panology Tech Solutions for their technical help and equipment, and Kim Remington, Parsons PR's Director of Operations. And thanks to each of you for your support. It really means a lot to me. Okay, that's today's show. Thanks for tuning in. Now go do good things. I'm Dan Parsons.